Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here to this week's Fan Fridays. So a lot of people have wanted me to review this battle. That was a pretty popular request, and it's an international challenge with the Shedinja. That's actually pretty crazy right there. So what's gonna happen? Is it just like lanterns soak into it, or what? We have Sylveon, and we also do have a Noivern as well. So I have no idea. This is like two strategies inside of one. We just have to watch how it plays out. But yeah, like the Shedinja, it's just free views whenever it does some shenanigans stuff. We did have one recently, but you never know. Like, people might just be picking up and having some fun with it. And then we also have a Sylveon and a Lantern. Apparently, that's like a hot doubles combo if it can work out. So that's going to be Will-O-Wisp on the Lantern, starting to work down that tanky Pokemon. And it has a Volt Switch anyways. So Volt Switch onto Rotom. Going to get a little bit of damage. Is this just going to go straight into something? I don't know. And then it's actually going into the Noivern, and we have a skill swap out of the Sylveon into Noivern. Oh my goodness, that's actually pretty no, that is going to be very ridiculous. So Poison Jab going to super effective onto the Sylveon. Sylveon has Citrus Berry, so tanky enough to survive even from a Conkeldurr, and has a Helping Hand as well. Oh boy, that's scary, because that's a Boomburst. And it gains telepathy from the Noivern. That's... what? That's so good! Because I was like, wait a second. Okay, you give the Pixilate to Noivern because the Boomburst is now super fast and outrageous amounts of damage. So it hits all Pokemon on the field, but telepathy from the Noivern prevents that, which is why Skill Swap works out really well in this situation. So then we have Blaziken. Yeah, it's going to Mega Evolve, and that's kind of a thing, but I don't really know how much else it's going to do. And then the Pixilate, Pixilate on that Boomburst after the Helping Hand. So it's getting way too much damage. It's like stab. Well, no, it doesn't get stabbed because never mind. I was like, either way, it's too much damage. It's too much damage. So that's going to be the Protect on the Blaziken. We'll just figure out how we deal with that after this, but there's a Boomburst. Garchomp gets absolutely destroyed by it. And Blaziken doesn't really have too much to do. Like, it's not going to hit a super effective hit in one shot at Noivern. That's just not how Blaziken works. So that's going to be the speed boost, and then switching out the Noivern anyways, going into the Shedinja, really, as Blaziken has the high jump kick, just to make it crash. And then we have Side Shock on the Sylveon. So just a little bit of disrespect at the end, like, oh, by the way, I'm not even going to have to finish off with this Noivern. We'll just knock you down this way, and that works out pretty well. Now, we do have another battle submission, but that's unfortunate because it's our only one left. I want to see more out of the strategy. I want to talk about it so much because normally when you think about skill swap, the Pokemon that is like sending out the skill swap is receiving a lesser ability. That the point is, you want to give the ability to a Pokemon that can make more work out of it, and then, the skill swapping Pokemon receives like Slow Start, Truant, or something useless in some situations. So it's like, alright, if this Pokemon has X ability, now it can 1v2, and then the skill swapping Pokemon gets hurt. But no, this is actually like super beneficial to all Pokemon involved, which is really crazy to think about. So Lantern's going to go for that Volt Switch and hit up the Dragonite for a little bit of damage, but it's mostly to break the multi-scale. And then we go into the Noivern. Actually, this team is a lot more precise than I thought it was, because the Lantern's meant to be slow. The Sylveon is meant to be ever so slightly slower. So that way, you can get the Volt Switch, and then you can skill swap on that same turn. And then the Helping Hand boosting into the Boomburst. How much damage is it going to do? Like, we know that Dragonite's not surviving because that's super effective hit. Or, yeah, it's super effective hit right there. Lugia is such a tanky Pokemon. So, getting dropped to about half, fairly respectable because it's a split damage, but that's also after a Helping Hand boost. And then Lugia was aiming the Aeroblast for the Sylveon instead and not getting too much damage. So Sylveon's like getting beat up here a bit. Poison's going to be annoying and all that. But now Lugia looks like it might not get KO'd this turn, which could be fancy, but we also have the Zapdos out. So how much damage are we doing Zapdos? The opponent has a pretty bulky team. So there's a Helping Hand. Let's get that Boomburst out. Let's see how much damage we can put out overall, because it's just mostly like super high amounts of base power, getting the 30% boost, and then also working off of some good special attack and high amounts of speed. Zapdos barely surviving, Lugia barely surviving, but Lugia has a Psychic. hits pretty well, and then Zapdos sets up the Light Screen. So Light Screen is going to buy an extra turn out of this, like the next Pokemon might not go down. So the bulk is helping them out, and then Sylveon is able to just like, you know, put down some pressure. So unless Sylveon has like Wish or something, there's a Citrus Berry. I don't really see it doing much this turn. Like, you might just throw out the Helping Hand in case there's a switch, but I wouldn't switch into a Boomburst anyway. So, you know, it's just Helping Hand, Outspeed, KO, double wipe, and then it goes into that. But I just can't get over that telepathy. Like, you wouldn't even think about Noivern with telepathy being something that people would really use, because it has like the Infiltrator ability. You'd rather like bypass that and get into subs and all kinds of craziness. So Life Orb going to cause Noivern to just keep taking a little bit of damage right here, but should be pretty fine at the end of this turn, even though Light Screen is up. There's the Mewtwo. Mewtwo's actually faster, so never mind. That might change some things up right here. So there's Mewtwo Y. It probably doesn't want to eat that Boomburst anyways, but it should outspeed, take out the Noivern, which means Sylveon has a chance to just like chip in a little bit of extra damage. Ooh, throwing out the Helping Hand. I don't know about that. Yeah, because Mewtwo, there's a Psychic. Here's the KO. So Skill Swap, Helping Hand, Psy Shock. And I would have guessed like Hyper Voice or something. Like, you could have gotten the free Hyper Voice out of that. There we go. Toxic damage adding up. Sylveon's done next turn. Ooh. And now we go into the Shedinja. But that's Helping Hand. I mean, Flamethrower, though, and bad things, right? Oh, yeah, Shadow Sneak, though. So Helping Hand into the Shadow Sneak. Going to try to get some damage down. Good little hit right there. Super effective. Shadow Ball. So Mewtwo's carrying the Shadow Ball anyway. That's going to take out the Shedinja. And then the Toxic going to burn down the... Oh, wait, nope. Focus Sash. Troll a little. Never mind. GG. Because then you just Shadow Sneak it once again, and it's too bulky. The Lantern's just too bulky to get KO'd. Actually, in that situation, I would have just gone for like an X-Scissor if I knew I had the Focus Sash. Because then you get the super effective, crazy hit with more base power and more stab. So there's a Shadow Sneak. That's enough to finish it anyways. That got a little fancy right there. So it's still a lot of damage. Like, that almost one-shot a Zapdos, which can be invested to be a very tanky Pokemon. Lugia is one of the more tanky Pokemon in the game, which is why you can use that as like a super wall. But you don't see it in doubles because it doesn't want to get focused down. I still really like the strategy. And like, again, I wonder if that Lantern has a slight soak hanging out there for the Shedinja, but also just the whole skill swap set. I can't stress enough how precise that is to make it, you know, you Volt Switch it out. I'm just pretty stuck like on how well that skill swap works out for everyone. It's like, all right, Sylveon's taking enough to survive. You skill swap, Boomburst now becomes a fairy type move, doing 30% more damage while also hitting both opponents and getting Life Orb boosting and Helping Hand boosting. It's a good strategy. I really like it. If this was on a fairy Pokemon, but there's not a fairy Pokemon that gets the Boomburst now, does it? I don't know, because that's actually kind of a really weird thing now once you start getting the Pixilate. Like, you're boosting the damage, but technically a stab would do more, but you're still making it a fairy type, so it's going to hit more Pokemon and have more super effective opportunities. Now, I did want to run some damage calculations to see how we could make this strategy better, potentially, because honestly, Noivern isn't mad when it comes to damage, and giving up the stab actually makes it less than a Sylveon. So, I mean, so we have a Sylveon that has, like, Pixilate, Life Orb with Hyper Voice. Well, that's going to be doing about 78 to 93% to a Mega Kangaskhan in doubles under Helping Hand, just like the Noivern using Boomburst with, like, the Pixilate, Life Orb in doubles with Helping Hand and stuff. So, because it's losing out on the stab, it doesn't, like, we're not getting as much out of it as though it was a Hyper Voice, even with the higher base power coming out of Boomburst. That's kind of a problem. I guess the trade-off here is that it's a super fast attack. I mean, very few Pokemon will be able to outspeed that 123 on the Noivern, but it's your only damaging option. So it seems like you can take out some fairly decent, like, uninvested Pokemon for a solid amount of damage. Also, you get that fairy coverage outside of the Boomburst, so it's like Boomburst plus, but I'm not seeing enough where it actually, like, justifies being more powerful. I mean, ooh, one thing I just thought about. Now, I was thinking Chatot, for example, so let's just say Timid doubles Helping Hand, so we have Timid doubles Helping Hand with Life Orb. If we remove the Pixilate out of the equation, like, say we just get rid of all that setup stuff, it shows the power of Stab versus the Pixilate, because 97 versus the 91, and it's going to be 58 to 70% on Chatot, but then it's also going to be 52 to 62 on the Noivern. Now, if we gave Pixilate to Chatot, that wouldn't work, because it would lose the Stab and end up losing damage from that. This is Chatot without the Life Orb. So I think the biggest problem with the Noivern is that it's forcing Sylveon or whatever skill swapping Pokemon into the helping hand, and if Noivern doesn't KO, well then your turn ends right there. So I'm thinking, like, what if Chatot was like Focus Sash with the Tailwind, and now we're just doing like a Boomburst strategy, and then we have another Pokemon that gets boosted by that Tailwind and then throws out mad damage. Because I mean, Chatot by itself on a Boomburst with that Tailwind behind it is doing pretty crazy amounts of damage. So let's say we remove the helping hand on Chatot, and then we go into doubles with it, so we can still do a little over 40% to a Kangaskhan, and then we can bring in a Pokemon like Chandelure. Chandelure, it'll go Modest, and then you can run a Life Orb, and then it won't be affected by the Boomburst. Because that was one of the brilliant things I really liked about it, is that, you know, by swapping the Telepathy, you're making it to where your Pokemon isn't taking damage, but if you're not KOing the opponents, it's going to set you back if they're hitting you hard enough. So that's kind of like one of the things to consider right there. Chandelure will be hitting like a pretty hard Heat Wave as well, so you're looking at good chances to KO something as bulky as a Kangaskhan on all neutral hits with a Boomburst combo like this. That's kind of it. So, you know, trying to double clear the field, it does take a lot of damage. It does take a lot because once your damage gets cut down from it being just straight up doubles, going Tailwind into something could help, but that's kind of what we have right now. So the only other thing I could think about is just like straight up getting the most out of a Sylveon, like Modest, Choice Specs, Helping Hand is already pretty insane. So that's like, you know, you put in the speed investment, 2v2, whatever, and now it's going to be super fast under a Tailwind at level 50. And while it doesn't have great odds to blow up the Kangaskhan, it's doing more damage than what we see out of the Noivern. So it kind of shows like you could either Tailwind into damage and then keep just Sylveon using Pixilate. Like, there's a lot of intricacies to using the double clearing. I feel like Noivern could also do better if stuff works out in its favor. So I mean, it's mostly just like trying to adapt onto the strategy. I really like the idea. I think it can be taken a lot further, but the Telepathy has its own brilliance that I just think deserves a feature on Fan Fridays regardless. So that's numbers and Pokemon and math and stuff. And I know that some people are going to complain because they suck, like, oh, the opponent didn't have a great team, so the strategy sucks. It's like, that's why we're going to look more into this and try to get the most out of it. So it's not bad, but it's not absolutely unstoppable, and that's the key. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.